Hey everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Ikaika Ho'ohuli. I'm your host of Unscripted Randomness with Ikaika. I'm so glad that you guys are here with me. I am so sorry for that long layover, guys. I am back though, and I had on one of my favorite guests that I've ever had. She is not only trying to represent Cal District 4, which is where I live in Placer County, but she is one of the most intelligent and awesome people that I've ever had the pleasure of having a conversation with. So enjoy this show, guys. And that's how fast that goes. I'm glad that we had some conversation off air because I did, before we get into anything else, I do want to know, I want to pick your brain on the debacle with the Iowa Caucus because that was interesting to say the least.
Absolutely. So would you like me to start? So
Yeah.
Iowa is a little bit different. You know, a caucus is different from a primary, and I know it's tradition and it's history the way that they do that, but I do believe that possibly in the 21st century, maybe they may want to start restructuring how that operates, particularly yesterday, because when you have the majority of the candidates touting Medicare for all and the government wants to take over your health care and they can't even run their own app to count votes. So my looming question has always been, when we have a government that's already $23 trillion in debt, you want to take over the most important aspect of our lives, which is healthcare. And yesterday, I think more than anything, validated my questioning of why on earth would we trust them? No, thank you.
Yeah. That's how I felt. So I don't, just to put a little bit of context to it, and I told you off air, I don't follow the Iowa caucus because for me, like, it doesn't have anything to do with my the primaries here in California. So I pay attention to it just enough to know what happened. And when I go to look at results and there's nothing there, and they go, well, we'll have them tomorrow by 8 a.m. And then 8 a.m. rolls around, still not there. And I'm like, these are the same people who are trying to impeach our president right now.
Correct.
And I couldn't believe it. We still don't have a full vote, right? With 60% or something like that.
Yes, the last time I checked, I think 67% were in, and it's a very, very, tight race for first place. But, again, Iowans take great pride in this, and I understand because there's a lot of history and tradition. But even somebody coming out of Iowa and making a big splash, winning, doesn't always necessarily go on to, because you have New Hampshire, and then you have South Carolina, and then it's our primaries out here with Big Tuesday or Super Tuesday. And so, it is what it is. Everybody wants to win Iowa, but I think yesterday proved that,
Well, Bernie, it was funny because Bernie was so upset because he wanted that airtime after, because the exit polls showed that he was supposed to win it, even though it doesn't look like he's going to.
Correct.
But he thought he did, and I feel like he felt like he missed out on airtime. So when he flew to New Hampshire, and all the delegates are like, we're leaving. We're not going to stick around and see what's going on. And they all fly to New Hampshire. And then he's there talking about how all their votes will be counted.
Right.
You go, how can you guarantee that?
Right.
You didn't even know what you guys were doing back there. Right. I don't understand it. And
I felt too that I just think, I love your word debacle. They're calling it chaos, the chaos with the caucus, but I like the debacle better, because here usually it is supposed to be a momentum, possibly game changer for a candidate. You want to come out of Iowa at least strong in the top 2 or 3. And there's no momentum because there's no winner.
Yeah.
And so you can't give this big glorious speech and rush into New Hampshire afterward. And then the next night, the president gives, what is arguably one of the greatest State of the Union addresses in the history of the American Republic. And then today he's going to be acquitted by the Senate. And so I just feel like 3 days is just not a good start.
And they're giving ammunition to one of, and I don't use this term bulldog as in a bad way. I like that he's like that. They're giving too much ammunition to a bulldog of a debater. You can't beat that.
Right.
And you're giving him all the ammunition in the world. His tweet was funny and he was very subtle, but the State of the Union was amazing. Absolutely amazing. My son watched it with me and he was interested the whole time. That's how amazing it was. I was in my living room giving a standing ovation. I'm like, oh, there's nobody here to do it with me.
Have your own party.
But it was awesome. And there was one time, well, two things. The Nancy Pelosi tearing that's get out of here. I don't even understand it. I wish I would have watched it with a blanket over the right side of my screen. And then that way I didn't have to see her snarky, her face. But
I have never seen, in all the, State of the Union addresses that I've watched, I've never seen so many individual heroes be recognized in one speech.
Yeah.
And then to have the Speaker of the House be so distasteful. And then how do you rip up a speech like that? That just honored so many different people. So many people. And so, they always berate Trump for being, for having these tactics and these antics. And then in one fell swoop, she gave them, like you said, not only a lot of ammunition, but again, it's in that atmosphere. Okay, it's one thing to send out a tweet, right? But in that atmosphere, in the chambers, there's a level of expectancy that you hold to the highest standard. And when you do something so petulant and childish in front of the entire nation in that position, they have lost all credibility.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And the fact that some of their members didn't even show.
Right. Or got up and walked out.
And to me, I go, listen, guys, I get it that you guys are our elected officials. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be our voice. Mm-hmm. So for you to not be there on such an important day, right. I don't care about your personal gripes with the president. You show up. You show up for the people you're representing, not for yourself. You didn't go because you're selfish to me. And this, I say this a lot on my podcast. I'm kind of dumb. I can, retain information and regurgitate stuff that I've listened to, and I can only know what I know, but I'm lower 30% of your graduating class. I just happen to have a bubbly enough personality to show up and do this. And I'm pretty self-aware with that. But for me to go, that seems really distasteful to not show up. Yep. I feel like that is, it had to have been a bigger deal for people who are, as passionate as you are. Speaking of you have your town hall.
Yes.
What day is that?
It is next Tuesday, which is February 11th. It's at William Jessup University here in Rockland. And just because California 4 is so vast and huge, the reason why we chose it is not because it's, kind of right here in Placer County where I live, but it is the only higher level institution of education in California 4. And so we also wanted to make sure that we could hold as many people as possible. Yeah. But I will make this vow to Cal 4 that when I am your rep, I will come to you in Mariposa and Sonora and Tahoe and Truckee, and I will hold town halls all throughout California 4. This is an opportunity right before the election to have constituents come and hear about our campaign, but also have a dialogue and discussion on the issues that matter to them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Next Tuesday, doors open at 6:30. It starts at 7.
Starts at 7. And then how do they find any information?
They go to my Facebook page, my webpage, juliannebenzel.com. Super easy, juliannebenzel.com. It's the first thing that you'll see on the website is all the information.
I've lived on that webpage, by the way. I've lived on that webpage for the last week. Nice. Because I've been super nervous to have you on. Oh. I've never had an intellectual on that was so far and ahead. It's so hard for me to sit here and talk with you. When you talk, it sounds so eloquent when you're talking about these things, which is really what I don't do. So
well, we can mix it up here.
No. I don't want it to be any different because the conversation we had earlier was amazing. That's the conversation I like to have. If I talk to people who are just like me, it's so boring. It's not fun, right? For me at least. So I want to I like getting in there with people who know things that I don't know, so I can know that information.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. Well, I will say this, if you don't mind if I interject. I want to bring fun into politics.
Yeah.
Whether people love
That's the
or
educator in
loathe.
you.
Well, whether people love or loathe the president, you have to acknowledge at bare minimum what he has done for politics. He has made it fun, and we're actually really, really fun. I mean, I am. Hopefully, your viewers or your listeners will deem me intelligent enough to be in this position, but we intend to have a lot of fun.
Well, I can tell you from the things that I didn't know much about McClintock, and I've lived in this district forever, but I didn't know much about him until you went to run, and I go, well, let me see who she's running against, because I've backed you just on the, on the sheer principles that you left the Rockland School District over. I was like, enough said. I'm behind you already. And then the more I started following your page, I'm like, okay, we have so much in common. The Tahoe trips and all that stuff. Every time you guys are in Tahoe and I'm seeing you guys mess around, I'm like, man, that's awesome. I love that. You hang out. You don't vacation outside of the district, which is not bad, right? Who doesn't like a Hawaii trip?
Sure.
Millions of people go there a year, but the fact that that is where you guys spend majority of your time. I think I said before we were on air too, I saw you recently picking your daughter up from school. I'm like, the fact that you've been doing life in this district for this long, it just makes sense that you would be the voice of us and not.
Well, let me reemphasize a couple things that you're saying is that I was born in Walnut Creek, which is in the Bay Area. So I lived my first 20 years down there, but my family was active, avid outdoors people. So the fascinating thing on this journey, because, I didn't even realize how vast and wide and diverse Cal 4 is we camped, biked, hiked, kayaked all throughout Yosemite Valley and Lake Tahoe. And so even though I've been up here for 25 years now, literally, and I mean literally, my entire life has been invested because we continue to be active outdoors people. But even though I was living in the Bay Area at the time, we were still spending our vacations. And so I'm not sure if you've ever heard of a Republican conservationist or a Republican environmentalist, but I am one of those. You will not find a more sincere advocate for the environment than myself, but we want logical, sensible, collaborative efforts to make sure that we keep our land and fire management, reasonable. So, yeah.
Yeah. Are you a big skier or snowboarder?
Yes, skier. Snowboarding was not a thing when I was young, and so once you learn something, I'm like, I'm not going to go learn snowboarding. I might break my who knows what.
Yeah.
But skier, yes.
Did the girls go too?
We taught our older daughters, but again, not really kind of understanding how expensive skiing of a sport is. Bless my parents for bringing us all the time. But once we started having 3 and 4, kids, then we do a lot of sledding and tubing and just playing in the snow now. So
well, if you guys decide that you guys want to go, I have extra lift tickets. That I'll pass on.
Yeah.
I'll pass on to you guys. I just popped into my head right now because that was the last video I saw of you guys was throwing snowballs at each other.
Yeah.
So
we do that well.
I went snowboarding for the first time ever. Never been snowboarding. I'm from Hawaii, obviously.
Yeah.
So I went for the first time with Sean Marshall.
Oh, just a couple days ago or last week?
Yeah, last Saturday.
Oh.
And it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And now I'm going again tomorrow. I'm going to go with Todd Bethke and some other friends from the church.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so I have some lift tickets that I'll pass your way.
In my estimation, Kirkwood was always my favorite, and I would always go as far back as I could. And there is nothing like being one with the mountain, right?
Yeah.
And seeing the majesty and glory of the Lord up there. There's just nothing like it.
That's how I felt. We went to Squaw, which is where the lift tickets are. It's Squaw and Alpine Meadows. And when we got to the top, which by the way, this is how mean my friends are. They take me there and I go down the green slopes twice and then they go, you're ready for the blues. So they took me to the very top of the mountain.
This is your first time skiing?
First time snowboarding, but yes, my first time first time in the snow.
Oh my goodness.
In snowboarding and or skiing. I had never been skiing either. They take me up there, and it's a cliff on this side and cliff on this side on this blue slope. I'm like, no, but it's blue. I'm like, yeah, but there's 2 cliffs on either side. That was not fun. But when we got to the top of that mountain, I do understand that. I did see, it was the first thing that came to mind was, this is beautiful. And, when we got up there, we pray, and, when you go up there with pastors, that's what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Soak it all in. Yes,
but it was
indeed.
amazing. It was a lot of fun. So that was awesome.
Great.
So tell me about a little bit more about your campaign. What are we gearing up for?
Yeah.
What can we expect out of it?
Yeah. Well, to go back to your previous point about who I'm challenging, I would offer the same thing. McClintock is what I'm calling a placeholder. He,
I like that.
checks a lot of boxes.
Box checker.
But he doesn't live in California and therefore I feel that the representation that we have received in the last 10 years is less than acceptable. And I just don't think that Cal 4 or possibly people all throughout the nation understand what a rep can do. And so I think they're going to see quite the disparity from what is being, or I should say not being done now. But 60% of this job is, in all sincerity, just being present, showing up, advocating, celebrating District 4. But the other thing too is that as taxpayers, we funnel money into the federal government, and it's my job as your rep to get that money back to Cal 4, right? Yeah. And we've seen nothing in the last 10 years. And so grants, I'm going to put one staff person solely in charge of getting grants back here for Cal 4. So Cal 4 is not going to know what to do, because they're going to say, what is this crazy woman doing being our rep? Because she is everywhere, and she is our biggest, advocate. And look at all of these goodies that she's bringing back to Cal 4 for us. We just have not seen it in 10 years.
We just haven't had a representative who understands the district.
Correct. No voice at all.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
We haven't had a voice, and now we have we have someone who wants to be that person. So
yeah,
you have my vote.
Thank you.
You have my listeners' votes too.
Perfect. Please.
Yeah.
If
you're going to be getting your ballots this week, right?
Yes. But I will tell you, because I know your audience is 18 to 30, and I just want to say a shout out to Millennials and Gen Z. Millennials are the only group that I taught for 20 years at the high school, junior college, and university level. And then my oldest daughter and now our daughters, they all will usher in Gen Z. So I do know that some of your listeners might not, I'm just going to take a real quick stab in the dark. They might not be registered yet, but that's okay. Fear not. February 18th. So they actually have a couple weeks. February 18th is the last day to register, and they can do it online. So they don't have to go to the post office and get the little form. They can actually do it online.
Can they can do their vote online as well? They don't have to wait for the vote to come in the mail?
There's not voting online. And what we saw again in Iowa, they tried to use an app. I think that, fortunately, California hasn't gone that way yet. You can't vote online, but you can register online, and then you can either request an absentee ballot, which means it will come to your house. Or I always like personally to just show up on March 3rd, the polls. You get your little sticker that says I voted, and you look cool, and you can post. Yeah, right? It's all about the sticker. Yeah.
I think it's because I'm on the later end of millennials. So I'm 32.
Yeah.
Although my kids would tell you I'm 29.
Yeah.
We have a running joke in the house that I'm like really scared of getting old, which I'm not.
No.
I way steer into the skid. But I kind of like that joke. I'm a jokester. I like playing pranks.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this prank. I am a huge sports nut.
Okay.
Football, baseball, basketball.
Okay.
Soccer, premier, international and nationally, boxing, MMA. Everybody knows I'm already gonna get people who are making fun of me because I brought up MMA. It's my favorite sport of all time. But I find it oddly satisfying when someone asks me about a sport that I go, oh, I'm sorry, I don't really watch sports. The only 2 sports I pay attention to is competitive horse riding and competitive dance, like floor routine. And I don't know why. It's funnier too that I don't tell them that I'm joking ever.
Yeah.
They may figure it out because they'll hear me say something. I've had people who have heard me say something about an athlete and they go, wait a minute, I thought you didn't pay attention to sports. I find it really oddly, like, it's so funny to me because can you imagine they are telling a family member about meeting someone and they were like, yeah, I wanted to talk about the Super Bowl. and this guy only watched competitive horse racing.
Right.
I don't know why I find that funny.
Nice.
I'm a jokester. I actually
love it.
way off topic. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
No, we're good. We're good.
I do that.
That's
why
good.
it's unscripted
I like it. I love
randomness.
unscripted randomness. That's so good.
Yeah. And I didn't, when I asked you to come here, and I go, I definitely want to help you propel your campaign, and I really do hope that my listeners who aren't registered would register, because that's important to me. For me, let's get someone who is going to really have a voice for the district in there. Not only that, someone that we can trust, because you're not a career politician.
Correct.
And for me, not being a career politician can be bad or good. In your case, where you're a historian and an educator in this district, you're an educator for 20 years. For me, it doesn't make sense for you not to be our elected official. It just it doesn't even make sense. So for me to really make that push,
Well, I think for your particular demographic here, I would ask that they seriously consider that their vote does matter. I do know that I run into a lot of students or former students. I will give you an example. Okay, so I have and I won't give her name, although she posted all over her own Facebook page. But she is 36 years old, so she was one of my very first students, and she has married four kids of her own. And I just kind of joked with her on text. I'm like, okay, sweetheart, you are registered to vote, right? And she's, texts back, yeah, sure, And I was like, oh no. I'm like, are you registered to vote? And she goes, oh, confession time. And I'm like, you're 36 years old and you've never registered to vote? And so, of course, I'm sending her all the information. And she did the same thing with you. She goes, okay, well, I'm on the website and I don't see your name. Where do I vote? I'm like, no. I'm like, okay, hold on, time out. Like, it wasn't up yet. Election is March 3rd. So we did a little education piece. But you know what? She was very, very honest with me. And she said, I've never had a candidate that I fully believed in, that I wanted to cast a vote for. And I never thought that my vote mattered. And it really honestly resonated with me, because she's 36. She's intelligent. She's not unintelligent. She's intelligent. She is busy with her own life, with her husband and her 4 kids. And why should she care? Right?
Yeah.
Why should she take the time to go down to the polls? Yeah, maybe it only takes 15 or 20 minutes, but that's her valuable time. Why should she care? And it is that millennial group that I feel like have been, a few of them have told me, we just feel pretty jaded right now. We feel, and that's, I think, the gravitational pull toward Bernie, is he's offering all this free stuff, and we're just going to completely change society, and not quite understanding what he means by that, because he doesn't even know what he means by that.
He does not.
And
he's our progressive delegate.
Yeah. But even that term, progressive, it sounds so hip and cool, right?
Yeah.
Oh, progressive. Yeah, sure, I believe in progress. It's such a facade. It's such a, and to your point about the career politicians, I personally, because the U.S. Constitution is my entire platform, I don't see anywhere in there that the framers intended for people to go back there for 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, look at your TV screen last night, right? Those people need to retire and go, live out the rest of go somewhere else, just go fishing. I don't care what. But, I feel like the intent is exactly what we are doing here. Is somebody like you, somebody who is a real American, who has lived a real life. I know you mentioned sports. My husband's a football coach. Our girls play softball and volleyball. Our entire life is on the sports field. And so I engage with real Americans, and therefore I have a pulse on what they care about.
Yeah.
And when you go straight from college to state assembly, state senate, and then to Congress, I feel like there is such a disconnect, and you're really kind of indifferent. You have no idea what your constituents care about, because you're not with them, or you're not one of them.
You have blinders on, because you've been doing exactly what you're saying. When you're that career politician and you go through those avenues, you haven't really lived
a real American life. Like you don't
haven't.
you don't care what taxes we pay. You don't care what our healthcare costs. You don't care about any of that because you are just kind of, very, very, very removed from the process.
My wife might kill me for this, but she just registered to vote before our last election.
Yeah, that's okay.
She'd probably kill me if I said that, but at least, that was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
But
she did it.
again, I'm going to go back to your demographic here that, and I'm hoping to reverse that pattern, but there is what I call an untapped electorate as well. That again, why, I could have a conversation with your wife. Why did you not register to vote? Well, again, why should I care? Does it really matter?
She'd probably say those exact words.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I do know a lot of conservative women, don't necessarily care for divisiveness. We like harmony. We love our husbands. We love our kids. We love community. And so I know a lot of times we look at politics and think, oh, it's so ugly. It's so divisive. I don't want anything to do with that. And so they just kind of, shut it out, which is understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like I said, everybody who is one of my listeners in that demographic, if you are not registered to vote, you have until February 18th.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that's what they had, to be honest. But the reason is I've been registered to vote since I could.
Sure.
I was I grew up in a household where every male either went into the military or became a auto mechanic.
Yeah.
Those are the only two ways
options.
you went.
Yeah.
You became an auto mechanic or you went into the military. And bless the service members of my family, bless the ones who went and became mechanics. Mm-hmm. But the big thing is that the ones that went in to serve, they are doing that. I wish that I had done that. I did not do that. But
Well, we have 3 nephews who are in the military. One who's still there, and he's in Texas in the Air Force. And, they were, 18, 19, like a lot of young men are, and just not quite sure what they wanted to do, right? But school was, if they never opened up a textbook in their life, they were happy, right? They just were not interested. Gave junior college a try, but they just weren't interested. And what I love about what I'm hearing conversations now at the national level is that we need to get technical training back into not only high school, but really emphasize that. Because I will tell you that for them going into the military for 4 years kind of changed the trajectory of their lives. They appreciated home, right? They saw the world. They got some discipline, and now they're both happily married and fully functioning and very, very excited about their future. And so even if some of your listeners are kind of in that, especially young men, but I know a lot of young females as well, 18, 19, 20, I don't want to go this typical college route. There are so many other options. And the military is, I think, a great one because the likelihood of you actually going into combat is pretty nil. I know we talk a lot about the potential, but I think it's pretty,
yeah,
unrealistic.
I think people are using it as a way to, it's like the shock factor. Like, we're going to go to war, mm-hmm. and it's going to be this full scale thing, and they're trying to put some kind of a fear into the American people. And I think it's just
right.
I don't read into that stuff, so
yeah, but yeah. And when you said auto mechanics, again, that kind of transition and having, I think, a national message that it's okay. You don't need to go to a 4-year college. It's okay. We need mechanics. So we need,
sure do.
a lot of tradesmen and women. And so there's a lot of opportunity. And so I think particularly for your listeners as well, that, there's a variety of options and you don't have to go the typical route.
Yeah. I felt like a nationalist duty to have to register to vote right away.
Absolutely.
Which is what I did.
Yeah.
And then I didn't eat. But the thing is because of my limited knowledge on anything politics, mm-hmm. I took a poli-sci class in college because I had to. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what I learned. Yeah. To be honest, because I wasn't going to be a teacher or anything like that. So mm-hmm. I didn't pay attention. Right.
You know what? I will, in all sincerity, because we do lead a real life. Yes, this is, I'm an American historian. I have a political science minor. This is definitely my forte in my life. But I completely understand. My husband, for example, he was what I would consider kind of apolitical when we were married. A football coach, teacher. We're just grinding out life. And so I would have these conversations with him. And of course, he knows all of his history and politics, but he's very amiable. He's kind of I want to, seek compromise, and I don't like the divisiveness. And so it's taken him a while to realize the importance. And again,
Your husband's so cool.
Well, yeah, he really is a great guy. And but we do, I think it's helpful that we have a glimpse or a lens into, we get that most people don't care, or that they, again, don't necessarily think that it matters. I guess my message would be, as a sincere populist, which is just simply we the people, I am one of you, your voice does matter. And because your demographic is young here, I would love to lead a revolt. So if you want me to get your listeners fired up, here we go. I would love to lead a populist revolt where we do transform the system to more of how it was intended, and we get younger people. Like, I'm all for term limits. Again, going back to when I look at my TV screen at night or my newspaper, and even people on both sides of the aisle, they have been there for so long. We need fresh, young blood with great, bold, new, innovative ideas in the halls of government. And so if any of your listeners are, interested, one of my many, many legacies is I want to kind of foment a populist revolt.
That's awesome.
and get more people, what I'm calling real people who are on the ground. They're real people who live real lives, back to Washington to transform the system.
How have your daughters been with all of this? You have 4, right?
We actually have 5.
5.
Yes.
5 girls.
Yeah. So one's in college back in Liberty in Virginia. She's our oldest. She's back there. And then we have a high schooler, junior high, elementary, and then we have a bonus child, bonus baby who's 4.
Every time I see her, I go, 2 years. She's 2 years until she's in my ministry, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Brooklyn, did I ever have you? No. I didn't know if I did or not. I don't know if that was like right at the tail end.
Yeah.
I think that might have been at the tail end of your.
And you know what Lainey jokes about is that when you asked her to lead the songs in children's church, is her bragging point is that she knew the moves better than you.
She did. You know what's really funny, and she probably could tell you this. There'd be times where I don't know the moves. I love preaching Jesus, but I don't know the moves. I still to this day I did the easy songs that had a lot of clapping in it because I don't know them. But I would do new songs and I would watch Delaney in the crowd. If she wasn't on stage, I'd watch her in the crowd and emulate what she was doing. And then I said at one point, I'm like, just get up here. You do this. I'll work tech, and then I'll come up to give the message. You do that.
Well, I will have to say, I'm going to give you a little grace here because there are some serious moves that kids have with songs these days.
It's crazy.
It's hard, and it's all so fast that, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my son is, he makes fun of me because he says I can't dance.
Yeah.
And my son is like a big time dancer. My son is like almost exact opposite. I played multiple sports growing up. My son was on the chess team. He loves dance. Nice. We're like exact opposite ends. Nice. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
I stare into the skid, and I have had to learn so much about things that I was not interested in as a kid because of him, which is awesome. But all my kids make fun of me for that. And I sing a lot.
Oh, nice.
I'm not a good singer. I sing though.
Okay.
I do that.
Yeah.
I do play a few instruments, so I'll play and the playing sounds good. And my daughter's like, "Oh, it's so awesome. You're writing me a song." And then I sing it and they're like, "You should let me sing it."
Or you should stick to your podcast, Daddy.
You know what? So they were a little jealous because I've been telling the kids that I was going to get them onto the podcast. And then when I told them that Lainey and Brooklyn were going to be on, they're like, we haven't even gotten our episode on there yet.
Oh, dear.
So.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You better make plans for that, Dad.
I know. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out a guest that I could have on. Maybe I'll do there's a friend of mine who I have who is, I just met him actually. He also does a podcast. Maybe we'll cross promo. He does a fatherhood, like a fatherhood field notes podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we'll do that and we'll have the kids on.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
There you go.
I'm sure they would love seeing what you do and being part of this. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Brooklyn saw my studio at the house, and it's a lot different than what we have here.
Yeah.
And so, the kids they always play podcasts. So they know they're not really allowed to touch the equipment, but the mic arms are mic arms. So they'll grab those and they'll play podcasts every now and again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Actually, she was very impressed by your studio. I remember her telling me that your studio was in home, so that's great.
Yeah, so I didn't know who was going to be dropping it off, and I'll say this: my wife makes fun of me all the time because there was a joke, like a meme that was floating around that had 2 jars, and it said one of the jars said $1 every time you bring up your podcast without someone asking.
Is it really full?
It's really full. And she said that would be mine. So it was like, the curse jars or whatever. So one was a curse jar and had nothing in it, and the other one was the bring up your podcast, and
nice.
It was completely full. So I am guilty of doing that. So when Brooklyn was coming over for the sleepover, I was like, okay, I'm going to open the podcast room up. That way everybody can see it, because I'm super proud of it.
Otherwise,
It took a lot of time and effort. My first podcasts were not the conversations. The conversations were wonderful. The actual sound quality and it wasn't these mics and mic arms and all this. It wasn't this. It was I've definitely felt the growing pains. And then now where I'm at, where it's just a lot of fun now.
Right. Well, I think a podcast would be really fun. Yeah.
I think that when you are elected, you should do a weekly podcast.
Oh, well, I like when you said when I am elected. The certainty. I'm all over that.
I feel like
when.
I feel like that you will get this. You'll have the supporters. I think it just makes sense. Your 2 really main competitors are
less than impressive in my estimation.
McClintock is just out of this world. And then the what's her name?
Yeah. Well, she's a Kennedy. She flew in from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And in my estimation, I'm thinking, if you can't make it in Massachusetts politics with a Kennedy last name, why are you flying 3,000 miles out to California to try? It's erroneous in every way. And
she raised the money that she raised because her last name.
Exactly.
Not because of any other reason.
Right.
And I don't understand why. What did you call her? What was the?
Well, I call her a parachute candidate.
That one. That's what I will. Forever. That's what I will call her.
Well, and again, just going back to more things that I want to change for your listeners is this should not be allowed. You should not be allowed to be able to get up and move 3,000 miles away and move. She moved here just in March, so she hasn't even been here for a year. You shouldn't be allowed to do that and run around the district and acting like I'm going to be your rep and we and this and ours, and it's about as disingenuous as it can possibly get. And that is why your wife only registered for a vote 4 years ago. My former student at 36 years old was not registered to vote, because when they see politicians doing this, it is so they're so much more intelligent. Constituents are so much more intelligent. They see right through it. It's so disingenuous. They're like, I have better things to do. I have a real life and I have better things to do. So I'm hoping to infuse some of just realness, which I believe our president, again, whether you love or loathe him, he is real. And, talk about unscripted, right? I know. It's refreshing, and it's what we need more of in politics. And so I would just like to foment a revolt.
Whoever takes his phone away from him so he can't tweet, it makes me so mad. I heard a story that he doesn't always have his device on him. Otherwise, he would just
all day.
I want to hear everything he says. I don't agree with everything he says. I do not.
Of course not. Yeah.
But I love that he doesn't care to say it.
Right.
I absolutely love it.
Right. And this is what I think about the American electorate. Not only do I think they're incredibly intelligent, they don't like to be lied to. And so they may not like, the unabashed and unscripted, whatever he does. But I think there's an appreciation for I'm going to go to the real authenticness.
Yeah.
There are times where we can be refined and, we need to try to be a little more disciplined per se. But I do believe that we need more realness and more just raw, off the cuff, unscripted. Like, who are you, right?
Yeah.
Tell us who you are. That's what Americans are craving, particularly, I will say, millennials. they just feel like they've been lied to. What many of them have told their whole life, they've been lied to. They're continuing to be lied to. They want something real.
And I think they're seeing through a lot. The thing is it's a very loud minority
Yes.
that is backing the Democratic nominees. But it is but I feel like, at least from what I can see, or just my experiences, is that everyone is really seeing through all of that.
Yes.
Because it's like with Pocahontas, I don't even want to get into that one. Let's forget that. And then Bernie's socialism, and I'll say it. I don't care. Whatever. This is why it's unscripted. When I listen to them talk, I cringe. I cringe that Bernie. I'm not saying you're out of touch, but dude, you're out of touch.
You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of a 1968 literature professor, a professor from the 1960s who, has just literally lost his mind and is running around with, socialist literature.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And, he's trying to he's using the platform that the right is it's all propaganda. And I'm like, I don't know if you've heard your campaign back, dude.
Exactly. Well, and when you can't even answer a simple question about how much will your health care cost, and on national TV saying, well, no, we don't know how much it's going to cost. And that the American people, again, they're not going to buy into that. You cannot sell us a program. You would never buy something without knowing the price tag, correct?
Yeah.
You can't sell us a program and think that we're just going to let you get away with it without having no idea what the cost is.
Yeah.
Again, even the millennials, even the Gen Zs, they're way more intelligent than that.
And I feel that. I feel that it's almost like they're trying to slap us in the face with, you're not smart enough to understand what's happening
right
in front of your eyes. And everyone's like, no, the curtain's kind of open. We can kind of see through all of that. And I was just talking with a friend of mine, and I said, I'm going to have, Julianne, I was going to have you on. And I said, how hard in the paint should I go on the Democratic Party? He goes, don't change who you are because of who you have in front of you. And I said, good, because I want to go hard in the paint on those guys. I couldn't fathom one of them winning.
Right. Well, you mentioned earlier something about the debate stage and going up on that against Trump. I have always thought, and I'm a historian, so objectivity is my craft. Let me just, re-emphasize that. That's my entire life. I do have the ability to look at things objectively. And I'm looking at all those candidates, and I from day one, I said, all we have to do is imagine Trump on the stage, and then just put any one of them right next to him. None of them will even be able to handle him. And so, policy-wise, or particularly personality-wise. And so I keep thinking and waiting. Do you guys seriously not have anybody else? Is there nobody else jumping in? And there's not. And I really, in all sincerity, I know I probably seem biased, but I do believe that he will win by a landslide because of the lack of the caliber of the candidates.
I agree. There is almost no caliber.
Yeah.
And Joe, he lost big. I think he lost the worst at the caucus because honestly, to come in fourth.
I think the last thing I saw was fourth.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
And that first debate, I said, Joe doesn't even recognize his party because, obviously he's gone super far left since then. But if you go back to that very first debate, you can look at his body language and he's literally looking around like, what happened to my party?
What am I supposed to do?
What happened to because there are, I know them, I engage with them, I love them. There are many middle of the road centrists, Democrats who are reasonable liberals. And that is not that most of those candidates, almost all of them are. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard might be the only one that you could reasonably have a conversation with right now.
And she used to be a Republican.
Exactly. Yeah.
Poor Tulsi.
I know.
I'm gonna lay off of her because I'm Hawaiian.
Yeah.
I'll be nice to her, even though even that I'm like, why are we still here? Or Andrew Yang and the universal basic income and
oh gosh, don't even get me started. Yeah.
So I have nicknames for all of them, and I won't say all of them. Well, most of the nicknames were already someone else said them, and I said, "Yep, Elizabeth Warren, you are called Pocahontas from now on. And yes, creepy Joe Biden, that's your name. And that's the way
Well, you know what he
follow
just
them.
called Mike Bloomberg? I mean, you have to give it to him that they're pretty funny.
I love
He's
him.
going around calling him Mini Mike, because he's, and I was, oh my goodness, that like, where does he come up with these things? But they do stick, they do resonate.
I think
and people-
Bloomberg thinks he has a really good shot.
It's just because of all of his money, he thinks he can just,
I don't need to raise
saturate.
any money. This
Right.
is, I'm going to go it alone. You're going to waste a lot of money.
A lot of money.
He's not going to be able to handle Trump. There's not even a chance.
No. Again, just again, objectively visualize Trump on the stage and visualize Mike Bloomberg next to him. That would seriously be like, it would be more looking like a Saturday Night Live skit than a presidential debate. So
yeah.
And Trump would treat it as such.
Yeah. And my, the thing too, no one gives, or I shouldn't say no one, but that really loud vocal minority, what they don't give him grace for is the fact that, man, he takes a lot.
Oh,
a lot. I mean, how many of those disrespectful SNL skits had to come out before he finally said, "Okay, listen, you guys are ridiculous." And then they felt like they got under his skin. I'm like, you guys aren't getting under his skin.
No.
He's playing with you.
Yeah.
He's playing with his food. You guys are boring him.
Right.
He really think he was triggered by what you guys did?
Right.
He probably laughed at it. And then he's playing with his food now and he's just messing with you guys because he knows he's going to get you guys to, he knows he's going to trigger you.
Yeah.
He triggers you by saying, "My name is Trump." Triggered. That's it.
I
That's
like
all
that
they have
word.
to do.
Well, I like your word trigger because
Because I read his son's book.
Well, that's exactly it, is that he does know how to trigger people and it works. But the sad thing is that they don't even realize that he's basically playing them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to your point, again, just
So much
because I
smarter
have
than he
this,
gets credit for.
Yes, so much. When you look back at the totality of U.S. history, no president has ever been treated repeatedly, relentlessly as he has. And I don't, half the time I'm like, why is he doing this? He doesn't need to be doing this. He's doing this for love of country.
Yeah.
And, but the incessant, nonstop just attacks, I mean, he's obviously got some serious thick skin, which you have to have in politics, but he takes it more than most. Yeah.
And I think that people don't even realize that when he does fire back, most of the time he's messing with you.
Right.
I see it and I find it hilarious.
Yeah.
I love it. I love everything. Every reaction he does, I've always loved it. Whether I agreed with what was said or not is a whole other issue.
Yeah.
But I love his reactions because it's the best. They're the best.
Yeah.
And you know what's even better is, he doesn't have someone next to him like, "Hey, you should say this."
Right.
He's like, "I'm going to tweet this."
Well, and again, to your podcast, unscripted, that is what Americans crave. They just want realness. Maybe you're a little too crass, maybe you're a little too this, a little too salty, but you're real. And that's what especially again,
so real.
Millennials love real. They just, and I will say this, that's why they're gravitating toward Bernie and Ocasio-Cortez. For all of their crazy ideas, you have to at least acknowledge that they have that kind of Trump-esque where they are sincere in what they believe, and Americans gravitate toward that. Yeah.
And that's good. You need that.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with some of the things she does.
Well,
I mean, or any of them.
right.
Yeah, but like just her not being at the State of the Union, I
Well,
can't.
she was busy on Instagram, lightening up her supporters.
Yeah, and I just, even what she tweeted when she said, after much deliberation, I've decided, whatever she said. I said, you don't get to make that choice. You represent the people who elected you.
Right.
So you don't have a choice. You're there for us.
Right.
Not for you.
Yeah.
So go.
Well, I mean, she
Wear
did,
your all white,
well,
whatever.
yeah,
I don't care.
She doesn't care about her district. I mean, she, booted Amazon out, or basically said, "We don't want you here." And that would have been so helpful economically to New York 21. And so she's not in this for her constituents. She's in this for her.
Yeah.
And that is terribly unfortunate.
It is terribly unfortunate. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I can't, I do like listening to some of it because it makes me laugh.
Right.
But
Of course.
But that's the only reason why I ever do any of that.
Right.
The only time I ever even give them a thought
Right.
is during that time. I can tell you this, if we had a real candidate on that side, it's not like I wouldn't listen.
Right.
You know, and I think that that I do have friends of mine who are definitely on the far left. And we've had those conversations, and I go, I'm not saying that I would always vote Republican or I'd always vote conservative because I'm towing my conservative line.
Right.
If there was the right candidate,
Yeah.
then
Let's have a conversation.
Then I would.
Well, you know, again, I have a long list of things I want to do, but if there's one thing besides fomenting a populist revolt that I could do is I would love to break up the two-party system. Because I knew this as an American historian. George Washington saw that political parties would be extremely divisive, and obviously he's absolutely correct. But I will tell you, being out there, 23% of Cal 4 constituents are independents, 8 or 9% are libertarians, which libertarians can mean a couple different things, but they usually have a conservative bent. And I think that our 334 million population of America is far too diverse, far too deep, far too vast to have just two, quote unquote. And because it is like, oh, you're a Republican, well, then you must think and vote this way, or you're a Democrat. And it just boxes us in, where I think that there's just so much more depth to who we are as Americans that I would prefer more parties, not less. And so I would love to break up the two-party system. I know that might seem like a pie in the sky, but
I look at it this way. I use the fighting analogy because I'm going to get every single one of my friends are going to make fun of me because I do this every time. But it's like with the judging system, they use 3 judges. And I'm like, can 3 judges really judge a fight that millions of people are watching and they don't know anything about what the fight game? No, you need 5, 6, 10 people. And I think it's the same thing with government. Do we really have to be pigeonholed into this one thing? Do I have to vote every single thing as a conservative because I consider myself a conservative?
Right. I like your word pigeonholed because I didn't look at the ballot. I look at it very differently when your name's on it. And when it says, party preference, Republican, I really honed in on that word. I said, preference, yes, I prefer the Republican Party, but that's because, it's a preference. It doesn't mean that 110% all the time, or I just think that there's so much complexity. And the thing that I like about multiple party systems, like say in Britain, their parliamentary system, I would love to emulate that because you have to coalition build. And so, maybe you're a libertarian and I'm all about the Green Party or, whatever, that you and our parties have to work together to have a coalition, to have a majority. And then there's more collaboration instead of, this aisle thing. You're on the right, I'm on the left, and we barely talk. Not how it was meant to be.
It's not how it was meant to be. I think you guys are running pretty
good.
Pretty good.
Okay.
I think, what are we thinking? We're at the 45 point.
Okay, perfect. We just have an 11 a.m.
Yeah. No, we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
I would love to have you on a follow-up.
Sure.
So
when I win?
When you win. Right after you win,
well, let me tell you.
Do your party, and then after that,
yeah.
we'll revisit this and we can talk about talk about everything that went through. So
that's fantastic.
Primaries are March 3rd, everybody.
Yes, and wait, because of your demographic, if you have not for some strange reason, just really strange reason, not registered to vote, first of all, your vote matters. So please civically get engaged. But February 18th is the last day to register. You can register online. You just can't vote in line. Yeah. I mean, online.
Yeah.
But
and then town hall is on Tuesday the
11th. So next Tuesday. Yep. William Jessup, 7:00. The doors will open at 6:30. I'd love to hear from you, and you'll hear just a little brief about our campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be there. So.
Oh, yay. Wonderful.
Yep.
Well, thank you to your listeners. Thank you to you. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
We love unscripted everything.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Guys, thank you so much for all the support, and thank you so much for the listen. I words can't even express how happy I am that I had this conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Love you guys. God bless.